The invitation promised a casual dinner at an upscale steakhouse to celebrate my 25th birthday, a milestone I had been eagerly looking forward to sharing with the 6 people I loved most in the world. I pushed through the heavy oak doors of the private dining room, a bright smile plastered on my face, ready for the inevitable chorus of a poorly harmonized surprise greeting and the popping of champagne corks. Instead of balloons and confetti, I was met with a deafening, heavy silence and the sight of a bleak circle of 6 stiff-backed chairs arranged perfectly under the dim, unforgiving glow of a single overhead chandelier. My mother sat in the center, her hands folded primly in her lap, her eyes already welling up with the practiced, theatrical tears she reserved for moments when she needed to completely control the narrative of a room. Beside her, my father sat with his arms crossed over his chest, his jaw set in a stern line, exuding an aura of deep disappointment that had always been his favorite weapon to wield against me. To his left was my younger sister, the golden child of the family, clutching a thick leather binder to her chest and looking at me with an expression that bordered on a disturbing, barely concealed gleam of predatory excitement. Across from them sat my fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry in 4 months, his eyes firmly glued to the hardwood floor, entirely unwilling to meet my gaze as I stood frozen in the doorway. Next to him was my childhood best friend, leaning over to gently rub his shoulder in a gesture of intimate comfort that immediately sent a cold, sharp spike of adrenaline straight through my veins. Finally, completing the circle was my senior business partner and mentor, checking his gold Rolex with a sigh of profound irritation, as if my birthday were merely another tedious boardroom meeting keeping him from his golf game. I took a tentative step forward, the heavy oak door clicking shut behind me, sealing me inside this bizarre, suffocating tableau that felt less like a celebration and more like an execution waiting to happen. "Take a seat, sweetheart," my mother whispered, her voice trembling with synthetic grief as she gestured to the single, empty wooden chair placed directly in the center of their terrifying little tribunal. I sat down slowly, the cold wood biting into my spine, looking from face to face, waiting for the punchline of what I desperately hoped was just an incredibly morbid and poorly executed practical joke. "We are here because we love you," my mother began, pulling a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "But we can no longer stand by and watch you destroy yourself and the people who care about you." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. She went on to describe my supposed workaholism and selfishness, painting my 80-hour work weeks, building my startup as a malicious crusade to ignore my family's emotional and financial needs. My father chimed in, his voice booming with righteous anger, demanding to know why I had refused to co-sign the loan for his new boat when I clearly had the liquid assets sitting uselessly in my company's accounts. My sister opened her binder, reading aloud a meticulously catalogued list of times I had missed her minor social events, concluding that I owed her an all-expenses-paid trip to Europe to compensate for my toxic sibling neglect. I turned to my fiancé, desperately seeking a lifeline, but he simply muttered that my ambition made him feel emasculated and that I was far too emotionally unavailable to ever be a proper, supportive wife to him. My best friend nodded in fervent agreement, her hand sliding down to intertwine her fingers with my fiancé, stating that my toxic independence was ruining my relationships and that I needed a drastic, humbling reality check. Then, my business partner slid a thick stack of legal documents across the floor toward my chair, smoothly explaining that for my own mental health, I needed to sign over my controlling shares of our company for a fraction of their worth. The synchronized precision of their complaints suddenly locked together in my mind. This was not an intervention about my well-being, but a coordinated coup to strip me of my assets, my confidence, and my life's work. I looked closely at the intertwined fingers of my fiancé and my best friend, the predatory greed in my sister's eyes, and the impatient, calculating smirk on my business partner's face, and the veil of illusion finally lifted. A profound, terrifying calmness washed over me, chilling my blood and silencing the panic in my chest, replacing the shattered pieces of my broken heart with a cold, hardened resolve that I had never felt before. I stood up slowly, the legs of the wooden chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor, the harsh sound slicing through the thick, suffocating tension that had filled the private dining room. I picked up the buyout documents from the floor, looked my business partner dead in the eye, and slowly, deliberately, tore the thick stack of papers directly in half, letting the pieces flutter to the ground. I slipped the diamond engagement ring off my finger, walked over to my best friend, and dropped it perfectly into her lap, whispering that she could keep the ring, the man, and the misery they deserved together. Turning to my family, I delivered a single, unwavering sentence that echoed off the oak-paneled walls. "You are all dead to me, and you will never see a single dime of my money as long as you live." I turned on my heel and walked out the heavy doors without looking back, leaving the 6 of them sitting in stunned, open-mouthed silence, their carefully orchestrated master plan crumbling into dust before their very eyes. The night air was biting and cold as I stepped out of the restaurant, the chill perfectly matching the frozen, numb sensation spreading through my chest as I approached my car alone in the empty parking lot. The drive home was eerily silent, devoid of the radio or the sound of crying, my mind already worried with the cold, calculated arithmetic of survival and the sudden, glaring realization that my entire life had been a lie. I entered the apartment I shared with my fiancé, grabbing a single large suitcase and methodically packing only my most crucial belongings, leaving behind everything we had bought together. Erasing my presence from the space entirely, I pulled out my phone, navigated to my contacts, and systematically blocked all 6 of their phone numbers, severing my digital ties to the ghosts of the people I had once foolishly trusted with my life. That night, I lay awake on the stiffy, uncomfortable mattress of a cheap roadside motel, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, waiting for the tears to come, but finding only a vast, empty well of pure adrenaline. By the time the morning sun began to filter through the dusty blinds, the initial shock had fully metabolized into a laser-focused, searing anger that demanded absolute, uncompromising retribution for the betrayal I had suffered. I opened my laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark motel room, and created a new, encrypted spreadsheet, meticulously typing out 6 names in the very first column of the blank, the Hital Kanba. My first move was to hire the most ruthless, expensive private investigator in the city, transferring a massive retainer fee from my personal emergency fund to guarantee absolute discretion and unparalleled access to their deepest secrets. Over the next 3 weeks, while ignoring the desperate emails and letters piling up from my betrayers, I operated in total secrecy, auditing my own company's books late at night to find the vulnerabilities my partner was hiding. The investigator's first encrypted dossier arrived right on schedule, revealing a trail of hidden offshore accounts that my business partner had been using to slowly embezzle company funds for the past 3 years. With access to the shared cloud drive I had once carelessly maintained with my fiancé, I dug through years of digital backups, uncovering a hidden folder disguised as tax documents that contained thousands of incriminating files. The files revealed that his affair with my best friend hadn't been a sudden lapse in judgment, but a carefully concealed relationship that had been going on for over 2 years, completely mocking our entire engagement. The private investigator struck gold again, uncovering the terrifying reality behind my father's sudden need for a boat loan. He was drowning in hundreds of thousands of dollars of illicit sports gambling debt to dangerous local bookies. Further digging exposed my mother's pristine socialite image as a total fraud, revealing that she had been systematically skimming money off the top of the charitable foundation she ran to fund her lavish high society lifestyle. Even my perfect sister wasn't spared from the brutal light of the truth. The investigator found definitive proof that she had paid a hacker to forge her Ivy League transcripts and her supposedly prestigious college degree. The puzzle pieces snapped together with horrifying clarity. The intervention was a desperate, panicked attempt to break my spirit and seize my company assets because every single one of them was secretly drowning in their own catastrophic failures. They hadn't gathered to save me from myself. They had gathered to slaughter the golden goose, hoping to feast on the financial remains to cover up the disastrous, secret lives they had been leading behind my back. Target number 1 and 2 were the lovers I waited patiently until the evening of my fiancé and my best friend's lavish engagement party, an event funded entirely by her wealthy, incredibly image-conscious parents. I wasn't invited, of course, but money buys incredible access. A generous bribe to the catering manager secured my anonymous ability to hijack the audiovisual system just as the toasts were about to begin in the grand ballroom. As the guests raised their champagne flutes, the romantic slideshow suddenly glitched, cutting away from pictures of the happy couple to crystal-clear screenshots of their secret text messages, projected 50 feet high for everyone to read. But the true devastating blow wasn't the proof of their affair. It was the subsequent slides showing my fiancé's identical, equally graphic text messages to 3 other women he was currently sleeping with behind my best friend, Espe. I watched from the shadows of the balcony as my best friend's face crumpled in utter humiliation, the champagne glass slipping from her trembling fingers and shattering loudly against the pristine marble floor of the ballroom. My ex-fiancé scrambled frantically toward the AV booth, tripping over microphone cords in a desperate, pathetic attempt to unplug the projector, while the room erupted into a cacophony of gasps, whispers, and outraged shouts. Her proud, wealthy parents took one look at the damning evidence of his serial infidelity, turned on their heels in disgust, and immediately announced to the silent room that the wedding was permanently cancelled. 2 betrayers down, their relationship shattered, their social standing annihilated, and their trust in each other completely destroyed in the span of 5 agonizingly public minutes. Target number 3 was my business partner. I waited for the annual industry gala, the exact night he was scheduled to stand on stage and receive a prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award in front of our peers. 5 minutes before his name was called, I hit send on a highly detailed, heavily encrypted email containing all the evidence of his embezzlement, forwarding it simultaneously to the IRS, the SEC, and our company's board of directors. As he stepped up to the podium, smiling broadly and adjusting his tuxedo, the heavy doors of the banquet hall swung open, and 3 federal agents in windbreakers walked straight down the center aisle toward the stage. The microphone captured his confused, panicked, stammering as he was read his rights, handcuffed in front of 500 industry and unceremoniously escorted out the back doors of the hotel ballroom. Within 48 hours, the board ousted him completely, and I easily swept in to reclaim absolute majority control of my company for pennies on the dollar, purging his toxic influence from my life's work forever. Target number 4 was my sister. She was on the verge of landing a 6-figure executive position at a rival marketing firm, a job she felt utterly entitled to, despite her complete lack of genuine qualifications. On the morning of her final, definitive interview with their CEO, I sent an anonymous, untraceable package to their human resources department, containing the definitive proof of her forged transcripts and her fake Ivy League diploma. She was escorted out of the corporate lobby by security, humiliated and screaming, completely unaware that her name was simultaneously being added to an industry-wide blacklist that would permanently bar her from any reputable firm. Stripped of her golden child status and her fraudulent career prospects, she was forced to move back into the damp, unfinished basement of my parents' house. Her dreams of European vacations replaced by the bitter reality of minimum wage prospects. Targets 5 and 6 were my parents. They were hosting their most important event of the season, a high-stakes silent charity auction at their exclusive country club to raise funds for my mother's supposedly noble foundation. My mother thrived on the adoration of her wealthy peers, floating through the ballroom in a designer gown, while my father schmoozed at the bar, completely ignoring the massive debts hovering like a guillotine over his head. I arranged for a special, anonymous donation to be placed on the premier auction table. A beautifully bound, leather portfolio stamped in gold lettering, looking exactly like a high-end investment opportunity for the club's elite members. A curious socialite opened the portfolio, expecting to find real estate brochures, but instead found a meticulously detailed, easily digestible summary of my mother's systematic skimming of charity funds, backed by irrefutable bank statements. Like a spark hitting dry tinder, the whispers ignited and spread rapidly across the ballroom, wealthy donors pulling out their phones, comparing notes, and stepping away from my mother, as if she had suddenly contracted a lethal disease. I watched through the massive glass windows from the club's terrace as my mother's fake smile collapsed into a mask of sheer, unadulterated terror, realizing in real time that her reign over high society was permanently over. Meanwhile, out on the dark, manicured greens of the 18th hole, a sleek black SUV quietly pulled up to the clubhouse. I had anonymously tipped off my father's ruthless bookie regarding his exact location for the evening. Two massive, stone-faced enforcers stepped out of the vehicle and walked straight into the lavish country club bar, cornering my father by the Scotch selection and quietly informing him that his time to pay was officially up. Social ruin and financial collapse struck my parents simultaneously in a single, devastating night, their meticulously crafted facade of superiority crumbling into ashes, leaving them facing criminal investigations and terrifying debts without my safety net to catch them. Exactly 1 year later, the harsh memories of that terrible intervention in the private dining room felt like a distant, faded nightmare that belonged to an entirely different person in an entirely different lifetime. It was the night of my 26th birthday, and the air was warm and sweet as I sat alone on the wrought-iron balcony of my newly purchased penthouse suite, overlooking the glittering skyline of a different city. I poured myself a glass of exceptionally rare, Binter champagne, the golden bubbles catching the city lights, feeling a profound, deep-seated sense of accomplishment that no one could ever steal, manipulate, or take away from me again. My personal phone, equipped with a brand new, unlisted number, suddenly buzzed on the glass table. The screen lit up with a forwarded notification from my old, abandoned voicemail inbox, signaling a barrage of new messages. The automated transcription flashed across the screen. Frantic, tearful apologies from my mother, desperate begging from my sister, pathetic pleas from my ex-fiancé, all of them completely broken and finally realizing the horrific magnitude of their mistake. I didn't feel a flicker of sympathy, nor did I feel the raging, burning anger that had consumed me a year ago. I felt only the quiet, absolute indifference of a ghost observing the living from afar. I tapped the screen once, selecting all the voicemails, and hit the delete button without listening to a single second of their misery, permanently purging their voices from my world. I looked down at the glowing screen of my tablet, reviewing the surging, highly profitable quarterly reports of my reclaimed company. Knowing that I had built my empire stronger than ever on the ashes of their betrayal, a genuine, relaxed smile finally broke across my face as I raised the crystal flute to the city skyline, celebrating my birthday exactly as I was meant to, beholden to no one, utterly victorious, and completely free. I took a slow, luxurious sip of the cold champagne, letting the silence of the beautiful night wash over me, finally finding the true, unbreakable peace that comes when you burn the bridges that were only meant to trap you.